production values are excellent, the story is great, it's hard-hitting, and it has a call to action. The kind of thing you'll go, you'll cry, and you'll come out of there encouraged. You know, it is really, really worth seeing, and if you support them, you're supporting me. You know, because the sooner they get, the more money they make out of that, the quicker they can get onto my project. And I just say too, selfish reason, but I'll say too, we just started last night. We're raising $400,000 for my movie. The first $100,000 we want to do through crowdsourcing, and that went live last night. So if you want to help that project, you go to Indiegogo, INDIEGOGO, and look up the Enemies Within. That's a crowdsourcing website. It's like, you know, when you have a fundraiser for the swimming pool at your school, you have a graph, a thermometer, and as people donate money, it fills up. Well, we get it runs for a month. It's just started. We want to raise $100,000, but the more people kick in at the start, the more momentum it gets. So if you want to help my project, get it underway, and I'll tell you about it a bit later, go to Indiegogo and put 20, 30, whatever you can afford into that. It'll be really, really helpful, really grateful. So I want to say thanks very much, John, for having me here. Thanks for you guys for turning up. I see a lot of familiar faces here. For those who don't know me, I've been touring your country for the last 3 years, spoken to more than 300 groups, basically about the Marxist infiltration of your government. Your government gives me 3-month visas to visit your country, but I'm very tempted to stay for, 90 days. I'm very tempted to stay for 91 days, because apparently I'll get a free cell phone. What a great country. So, people always say to me, why do I care about the United States? And I say there are 2 simple reasons. The first is gratitude. You know, my country was saved in World War II from invasion by the Japanese, by the massive sacrifice of your fathers and uncles and grandfathers at the battles of Guadalcanal and the Coral Sea and Midway. And that memory is still very strong in my country. The second reason is related, but it's more selfish. Ronald Reagan had it right. This is the last best hope for mankind. If freedom should fail in the United States, if you lose your constitution, your liberty, your economic dynamism, and your military superiority, all of which are in grave danger, the bad guys of this planet, I'm talking Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, North Korea, and their Islamic allies, they will carve up this planet amongst themselves. You see that happening right now, folks.
Yeah.
I get emails all the time from people who say to me, look, if things turn bad in America, can I come and live in New Zealand? I say, look, come down, you'll love it, but it's not a refuge. Nowhere is now. 1,500 miles to the north of my country lie the beautiful Fijian Islands. Wonderful tourist destination, but the Chinese are now training the Fijian military. They're building big hydro dams on the islands. They want a port for their navy there. Tonga is pretty much in the same situation, as are many of the South Pacific microstates. About 3 years ago, the Australian Minister of Defence, and if you're not sure, Australia is a little island off our west coast. Perspective. He was up in China for talks, and a top Chinese general publicly embarrassed him. He said, now is the time for Australia to choose. You need a godfather. Will it be an American godfather or a Chinese godfather? If you are smart, you will choose China, because we are the growing power in the region. Now, he wouldn't have been arrogant enough to say that under President Bush, even under Clinton, certainly not under Reagan, but he's cocky enough to say it now because he sees the leadership coming out of your White House. And all around this world, folks, your allies, Israel, Germany, Britain, Canada, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, Australia, they're all freaking out, folks, because they see that your president loves the bad guys a lot more than he loves them. And this is causing big instability. You know, you've got Japan, which was never supposed to rearm after World War II. And now they are rearming. It's in their constitution not to rearm, but they are, because they cannot trust your president to protect them from North Korea and China. You've got Israel, which is its back to the wall, virtually no friends left in the Middle East at all, thanks to your president's meddling. And they may be forced to take desperate measures to defend themselves, and those measures could put us into World War III. And your allies, people, they look at your president and they think, is it worth being a friend of America? They look at Poland and Czechoslovakia. One of the first things your president did when he took office was to cancel the missile shield that was going to protect those countries from the Russians. Just abandoned them. Then they saw him abandon Georgia to the Russians. And now they're looking at the Ukraine, folks. The Ukraine is fighting for its liberty right now. Whoever wins that battle decides the fate of Europe. If the Ukrainians can break free, Putin will face a revolution in his own country. If Putin takes the Ukraine, he will then take the Baltic states, Eastern Europe, and the Cold War will be back on, full on, folks. Full on. Now, the Ukraine has a treaty signed in your Senate under Bill Clinton, guaranteeing that country American military protection in the event of Russian aggression. They gave up their nuclear arsenal in exchange for an American promise of protection. And now that they need it, folks, where is it? So far, Obama has sent them $5 million worth of non-lethal aid and John Kerry. Which is more insulting, folks. Who's John Kerry? Jane Fonda with a little less testosterone, perhaps. But to be fair to Mr. Obama, he did institute some sanctions on some rich Russians to terrify Mr. Putin. I saw a rally in downtown Moscow the other day. A woman held up a sign that epitomized their attitude to your president and his actions. The sign said, "Your porn is harder than your sanctions." So that's their attitude, folks. So you've got a president who cries peace all the time. He's got a Nobel Peace Prize in his trophy cabinet, yet he is leading the world into war. You have China building a big blue water navy in the Pacific right now. You have Russia clearly intent on re-establishing the old empire. You've got Iran wanting to dominate the Middle East and destroy Israel, on the verge of going nuclear. You've got Iraq and Syria dissolving into chaos and anarchy, a possible new terrorist caliphate. Most of Africa is under Chinese domination. Most of Latin America is under Marxist control. Most of Europe is socialist and neutral and terrified of the Russians. These are your allies, folks. Well, they were. You've got all this going on. You've got North Korea and Iran known to be working together, testing electromagnetic pulse weapons. 6 atomic bombs fired into your upper atmosphere from fishing boats off your coast would fry the entire electrical grid in your country for years. Your own government has said that if that ever happens, and there's very little to stop it, 80% of Americans would be dead within a year. You've got all this going on, folks, and your president says peace is breaking out, and this is the time to cut your military to ribbons.
Right.
He's reducing the Navy down to pre-World War II levels. He's purging generals he doesn't like. He's driving thousands of good officers out of the mid-levels of your military with the gay policy, women in combat, and rock-bottom morale. He's cancelling weapon systems right, left and centre. He's blowing off military contractors with millions of years of expertise in their ranks. This is not expertise you'll get back quickly, folks. This is a huge blow to your defences. He's doing all of this, people, because peace is breaking out. Obama has abandoned Reagan's doctrine of peace through strength. And what happens to your peace, folks, when you abandon your strength?
It goes away.
What is happening in the world today? Do you think the anarchy in the Ukraine and the Middle East would be happening right now? Do you think thousands of people would be dying if you had a Reagan in the White House?
No.
But these people are dying, and your world is on the brink of war because this country has twice elected an anti-American president. Elections have consequences, folks. And they have consequences for all of us. Because if America goes down, every Western country will fall. Every single one of us will go, folks. This is about my kids just as much as it's about your kids. It really is. So, you've got to realise your president has spent most of his life being mentored by pro-Soviet Marxists. Frank Marshall Davis in Hawaii, almost certainly a Soviet agent, a Communist Party member. Alice Palmer in Chicago, the woman who got him his first job in politics, definitely a Soviet agent. Their agenda was always to destroy the United States military, because they knew if they could take down your military, their friends in Russia and China would rule this planet. What do you think Frank Marshall Davis and Alice Palmer would think of your president, folks? Do you think they'd rate him highly? Has anyone done as much to alienate your allies, empower your military, empower your enemies, and gut your military as this current president?
No.
If Obama was a fully paid up Russian agent here to destroy your country, what would he be doing differently than he is today, folks?
He'd be getting a bonus.
Exactly. I think the most significant thing your president said in his entire first term of office, when he was caught off mic in South Korea, no one was listening, so he thought, talking to then Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Yes, Mr. Medvedev, when I get re-elected, I'll have more flexibility to deal with you. Yes, said Medvedev, I understand. I will pass your message on to Vladimir. We are with you. How much more of a window into your president's soul do you need, folks? How much more blatant does it need to get? So my books, I've got both of them here. The first book was Barack Obama and the Enemies Within. All 700 pages on Obama's communist, pro-Soviet, anti-American ties. And if you look at that book, you'll see it's pretty big and pretty heavy. And I got bloody sick of lugging that around the country, I can tell you. And I vowed and declared that my next book would be smaller and lighter. And this one is The Enemies Within, Communists, Socialists and Progressives in the US Congress. And guess what, people? It's bigger. Because those commies just kept on coming, folks. The deeper I dug, the more I found. And I couldn't leave out Ed Markey, could I? No. Certainly couldn't leave out Elizabeth Warren. No. Jim McGovern. No. Catherine Clark. No. You got a few of them in the state, guys. This might surprise you, you know. You've got lots of them here. Basically, the book is really about the two big secrets of modern communism. The first secret, I think they borrowed from the devil, because we all know that the cleverest thing the devil ever did was to convince people he doesn't exist.
Right.
What have the communists been telling you in the last 20 years, folks?
They don't exist.
They don't exist. Well, you can trust them about as much as you can trust the devil, people. Very similar strategy. The second big secret of modern communism, which is hardly ever discussed in the thousands of books on the subject, I think mine is the first, it is the ability of a tiny Marxist party, maybe only a few hundred comrades strong, to influence and even control the legislative process in their country. In other words, to write the laws. Now you see this in your state, folks. Democratic Socialists of America writes the laws in this state. They wrote Romney Care. They write most of the things you suffer under. But on a national level, it's even worse. The mechanism they use nationally and in this state is control of the labour unions. Now you might say, look, well, the unions aren't quite what they used to be, you know, they're a lot smaller. But you name me a single elected Democrat in this country, from county commission to federal level, who does not owe his job to the unions. You tell me one. So if you're an elected, say, county commissioner, and the local unions come to you and say, we want you to do this, and you say to them, well, look, this is a pretty conservative district, I don't think that people would go for that. And they say to you, I don't care, we don't care what the people want, this is our agenda, and you better do it, or you get no support next time. What do you think the Democrats are going to do, folks? Do what he's damn well told, right? So you were very lucky, I have to say, in this country for a long time, because your AFL-CIO at a national level was run by hardcore anti-communists like Lane Kirkland and George Meany. And they kept the Reds at bay, folks. But in 1995, everything changed. A massive political change in your country, and I bet you never heard a word about it.